A hotel employee was about to lose everything when the country's most feared heir showed up at dawn with an impossible demand. When she risked her career to do the right thing, millions in embezzlement were uncovered, and a plan for revenge that had been years in the making came to light. Their lives changed forever in ways no one could have imagined. A thrilling story of integrity, resilience, and a love that transformed an entire empire. Get ready because this story will touch your heart. Subscribe to the channel, like this video, and comment on where you're watching from. The polished marble of the lobby reflected the tears Victoria Mendes was trying to hold back. It was 3 in the morning when footsteps echoed through the empty lobby, breaking the silence that enveloped the Grand Hotel Imperium like a heavy cloak. She knew those footsteps heralded her doom. Alex Allen stood in front of the reception desk, his dark eyes scanning every detail of the room with the precision of someone calculating the value of each decorative element. At 32, he had turned analysis into an art, and at that moment his mind was already crunching the numbers. 5 minutes to solve his problem, or someone would pay the price. "I need the presidential suite," he said, his voice cutting through the air like a sharp blade. Victoria felt her world spin. 5 years of hard work, of late nights studying hotel management while caring for her sick mother, of genuine smiles even on the hardest days. All of it could crumble in 60 minutes. "Mr. Allen," she began, maintaining the smile that had become her trademark, "I regret to inform you that our presidential suite is occupied until... I don't care who's occupying. Vacate." The words came out like imperial decrees, laden with an authority Alex had learned to use as a shield since adolescence. Victoria's heart raced. She knew his reputation, heir to a billion-dollar hotel conglomerate, a man who turned impossibilities into reality through sheer willpower and unlimited resources. But here she was, a woman of humble origins who had earned her place through tireless dedication, facing the most impossible challenge of her career. "Sir, I understand the urgency, but we have other wonderful options." "1 hour," Alex interrupted, checking the Patek Philippe watch that had belonged to his father. "You have 1 hour to sort this out, or find another job." As he walked away toward the lobby bar, Victoria felt the weight of injustice on her shoulders. It wasn't just a job at stake, it was proof that honesty and hard work could overcome seemingly insurmountable social barriers. The aroma of coffee brewing for the morning service mingled with the scent of fresh orchids, creating an atmosphere that contrasted starkly with the storm brewing in her heart. Victoria closed her eyes for a moment, took a deep breath, and began to form an impossible plan. Alex watched Victoria from the dim light of the bar, his fingers drumming on the mahogany counter in precise mathematical sequences. It was a habit developed over years of tense meetings, transforming anxiety into calculations, emotions into numbers. Now he calculated the odds of her achieving the impossible, a 12% chance of success, taking into account variables such as the political influence of the suite's current guests and the hotel's internal protocols. But there was something about her posture that defied his calculations. Victoria hadn't bowed to his authority as expected. Instead, she'd maintained that smile, not the empty professional smile he knew so well, but something genuine that unnerved him inexplicably. "Family problem, sir?" The voice of James, the night bartender, broke his thoughts. Alex didn't respond immediately. A family problem. If only James had known that his presence there had nothing to do with emergencies or urgent matters, but rather with a desperate escape from a recurring nightmare that haunted him every time he tried to sleep. Claustrophobia. A vulnerability he guarded like a deadly secret in a world where any weakness could be used against him. "Just business," he lied, taking a sip of the whiskey James had poured without being asked. Across the lobby, Victoria worked frantically. Alex could see her consulting systems making discreet calls, and there was something almost mesmerizing about the way she moved, pure determination in every gesture, as if she were fighting a personal war. She didn't know it, but Alex had researched the hotel before arriving. He knew about the unspoken financial problems, the threats of mass layoffs, how each employee walked a tightrope. What he hadn't expected was to find someone who treated this instability not as an opportunity to protect themselves, but as a reason to fight harder. 23 minutes had passed when Victoria approached him again. Alex could see the weariness in her eyes, but also a glimmer of hope that intrigued him. "Mr. Allen, I have a proposal." Alex arched an eyebrow, prepared to hear some elaborate excuse or desperate negotiation. The presidential suite remains occupied, but I can offer you our master suite on the 15th floor. It has the same square footage, the same bay view, and she hesitated for a moment. And I can guarantee it will be prepared exactly to your personal specifications. My personal specifications? Alex felt a familiar unease creep up his spine. Did she know something? King-size bed with a firm mattress, room temperature at 20 degrees, total blackout, and… Victoria lowered her voice. Direct access via the private staircase. No need to use elevators. Alex froze. How did she know about his claustrophobia? Who had shared this information? His mind began to race, analyzing possible security leaks, betrayals within his team. Like you. Observation, Victoria interrupted gently. On the way here, you took the stairs even though the elevators were working perfectly. And when you entered the lobby, your posture changed. Your shoulders relaxed. Your breathing deeper. These are little details I've learned to notice when working with people. Alex felt naked, exposed in a way that money and power couldn't protect. But there was something in Victoria's voice. No judgment, no pity. Just professional understanding mixed with something that felt like genuine care. 42 minutes. She continued, discreetly checking her watch. I can have everything ready. For the first time in years, Alex Allen found himself facing someone who wasn't trying to exploit his vulnerability, but rather to accommodate it. And that frightened him more than any claustrophobia. Daniel Carter watched the scene from his vantage point behind the marble column, his eagle eyes not missing a single detail of Victoria and Alex's interaction. At 53, the general manager of the Grand Hotel Imperium had learned that information was power, and power was survival. Victoria had accomplished the impossible, not only resolving the suite situation, but doing so in a way that left Alex Allen visibly impressed. Daniel could see through it. This wasn't just a professional solution, it was the beginning of something that could threaten his own plans. Interesting development, he muttered to himself, already formulating strategies. Daniel had spent the last 3 years building a complex and silent scheme. Phantom suppliers, inflated invoices, unnecessary maintenance contracts, a financial maze that diverted thousands of Rs monthly into offshore accounts. The plan was simple. Slowly drain the hotel until it became a poor investment for the Allens, forcing a sale for which he had already negotiated a generous commission with international investors. But Victoria was becoming a problem. Her recent promotion to general supervisor following her predecessor's promotional transfer to Manaus had been calculated by Daniel. He needed someone in a position of authority who could be easily blamed when the misconduct was discovered. A young woman from humble backgrounds with no political connections. The perfect scapegoat. What he hadn't calculated was Victoria's genuine competence, nor her ability to impress even Alex Allen. Meanwhile, on the 15th floor, Victoria personally oversaw the suite's preparation. Every detail had been considered. The room temperature adjusted, blackout curtains installed, fresh but not overly fragrant, flowers strategically placed. She had even arranged for the kitchen to brew a specialty coffee using beans from the family farm. A personal touch she hoped would be appreciated. Victoria called Emma, one of the more experienced chambermaids. Are you sure about this? Mr. Allen has a reputation for destroying careers over minor details. I'm sure, Victoria replied, smoothing the last folds of the blanket. Sometimes when we do something with genuine dedication, people notice the difference. Emma shook her head, concerned. She'd seen many brilliant employees fired for much less. But there was something about Victoria that inspired loyalty. Maybe it was the way she always asked about her colleagues' families or the way she discreetly shared her lunch boxes when she knew someone was struggling. At 5:15 in the morning, Alex climbed the stairs to the 15th floor. Each step was a small victory against the anxiety the elevator always evoked. When she opened the suite door, she stopped dead in her tracks. The room was perfect, not only clean and organized, but personalized in a way that demonstrated genuine attention to his habits. The coffee waiting for him exuded an aroma that awakened memories of mornings on his grandmother's farm, before corporate responsibilities transformed his life into spreadsheets and meetings. But what impressed him most was the view. Victoria had positioned the chair so that he could see both the bay and the quiet movement of the city waking up, creating a perspective that was simultaneously grand and welcoming. A discreet note sat on the coffee table. "Mr. Allen, I hope this accommodation meets your needs. If you need any adjustments, I will be available. With respect, Victoria Mendez." Alex held the note for a moment longer than necessary. When was the last time someone had treated his needs as legitimate rather than a rich man's whim? When was the last time he had felt cared for? Downstairs, Daniel Carter was finalizing his next move. If Victoria was gaining Alex Allen's trust, it was time to accelerate his plans. An anonymous call to internal audit, some strategically discovered documents, and Victoria's meteoric rise would turn into the most dramatic fall in the hotel's history. The sun was beginning to rise over the bay, painting the lobby gold. It was the dawn of a new day, but also the beginning of a silent battle that would determine not only the future of the Grand Hotel Imperium, but the intertwined destinies of all who worked beneath its marble and crystal roof. Emily Morgan adjusted her Tom Ford glasses and opened the laptop on the mahogany desk in her office on the 30th floor of the Allen corporate building. As Alex's personal assistant for 5 years, she had become adept at anticipating problems before they became crises. And that morning, her instincts were on high alert. The young heir's nocturnal activity report had arrived routinely. Abrupt departure from the family mansion at 2:47 a.m. Arrival at the Grand Hotel Imperium at 3:12 a.m. Stay until 6:30 a.m. A typical pattern of his nightmarish escapes, but with one crucial difference. This time he had interacted with staff for more than 40 minutes. Emily knew Alex better than he cared to admit. She knew about his claustrophobia, the nightmares that haunted him since his father's untimely death. How he used mathematical analysis to mask deep emotional vulnerabilities. Most importantly, she knew how to protect him from himself. "Victoria Mendez," he murmured, typing the name into the private investigation system he kept for sensitive situations. 28 years old, from San Luis, Maranhão, with a degree in hotel administration from a federal university, Emily had been an exemplary employee for 6 years. But Emily had learned that the most important information rarely appeared in official reports. A discreet call to a private investigator in San Luis, another to a human resources consultant who owed her some favors. Emily began to weave a subtle, meticulous web of investigation, not out of malice, but out of genuine protection. She had seen Alex become emotionally involved only once before, with Olivia Parker, his ex-fiancée, whose mercenary intentions nearly destroyed not only their relationship, but also his ability to trust anyone. Meanwhile, at the Grand Hotel Imperium, Victoria faced her first morning as temporary general supervisor, amid a silent crisis she didn't yet fully understand. "The numbers don't add up," said Lucas, the accounting chief, holding out a stack of financial reports. "There are monthly discrepancies that are growing. Small, but consistent." Victoria pored over the documents, her business background allowing her to identify troubling patterns. Inflated maintenance costs, contracts with vendors she didn't recognize, expenses that seemed legitimate in isolation but collectively created a disturbing picture. How long has this been going on? At least 18 months, maybe more. Daniel always said these were normal market fluctuations. Victoria felt a chill run down her spine. Daniel Carter had offered to mentor her in her new position, always with fatherly smiles and advice that now seemed to have hidden motives. "Lucas, I need you to help me understand these numbers better. But for now, keep this between us." On the 15th floor, Alex finished his second cup of the specialty coffee Victoria had provided. He had slept for 3 uninterrupted hours, a recent record. He couldn't stop thinking about how she had resolved his situation, not through power or money, but through genuine observation and personalized care. His analytical mind struggled to categorize Victoria Mendez. She didn't fit any of the models of human behavior he had learned to recognize. She wasn't a servile subordinate, nor a disguised opportunist, nor a dazzled admirer. She was something more complex and therefore more dangerous to his carefully constructed emotional defenses. A soft knock on the door interrupted his thoughts. Between, Victoria appeared with a tray containing fresh coffee and some local fruit. "Good morning, Mr. Allen. How was your evening?" "Well," he replied, watching as she moved around the room with effortless efficiency, adjusting details he hadn't even noticed needed adjusting. I need to report some irregularities I discovered in the hotel's financial reports, she said, her voice professional. But Alex could hear the tension underneath. What kind of irregularities? Victoria hesitated. She knew she was treading on dangerous territory, potentially accusing her superiors in front of the company owner. But her moral upbringing, shaped by the teachings of a grandmother who always said, "The truth can hurt, but lies destroy," wouldn't allow for silence. Discrepancies in operating costs, patterns that suggest mismanagement or worse. Alex placed the cup on the saucer with a gentle touch that contrasted with the storm she could see brewing in his eyes. "Show me." As Victoria organized the documents on the desk, neither of them realized that Daniel Carter had positioned one of his allies on the cleaning crew to discreetly monitor activity on the 15th floor. The human chess game was just beginning, and each move could determine not just careers but entire lives. Outside, São Paulo woke to a partly cloudy sky, promising a rainy afternoon. It was the kind of weather that made people introspective, prone to decisions that could change everything. Rain began to pound against the 15th floor windows as Alex finished analyzing the documents Victoria had brought. Each number told a story of systematic betrayal, and his mind, trained to detect patterns in complex data, had already mapped out the extent of the scheme. 3 million, he said finally. In 18 months, approximately 3 million reais have been diverted through this system. Victoria felt her world spin. The amount was greater than everything her family had ever earned combined. "Mr. Allen, I swear I had no idea." "I know." The certainty in his voice surprised her. "If you knew, you wouldn't have presented me with the evidence so naively." There was something almost affectionate about the word naive, as if it were a precious quality rather than a flaw. Alex stood and walked to the window, watching the drops slide down the glass. "Victoria, what do you know about my family history?" "Just what everyone knows. Hotel empire built by his grandfather, expanded by his father. My father died of a heart attack at 52. Alex interrupted, his voice thick with a pain he rarely allowed to show. "Officially. Unofficially, he died of guilt." Victoria remained silent, sensing she was about to hear something Alex rarely shared. In his later years, he discovered that several of our hotels had been built using questionable practices. Nothing illegal, technically, but morally corrosive. Bribes for approvals, pressure on local communities, exploitation of workers. When he tried to correct these practices, the stress consumed him. The rain intensified, creating a rhythmic drumming that seemed to mark the time of the revelations. "That's why you're so careful about ethical issues in business," Victoria understood. Alex turned to her, startled by the realization. "How did you—" "Observation." She repeated the word she'd used the night before. "Last night, when we discussed the suite situation, you could have simply used your authority to remove the other guests. But even though you were angry, you didn't. You chose an alternative that wouldn't harm others." Alex felt something stir in his chest, a sensation he hadn't experienced in years. Someone had seen past his mask of businesslike cool and found— what exactly? Decency? Vulnerability? Humanity? "Victoria, I need you to understand something," he said, sitting back down. "If we decide to officially investigate these irregularities, you will become the visible face of the accusation. Powerful people will be threatened, and they will respond by trying to destroy your reputation, your career, your life. What if we don't investigate? The embezzlements continue. More employees may be laid off to cover the deficits, and eventually—" Alex paused, calculating. "Eventually, the hotel becomes financially unsustainable." Victoria thought of Emma, who worked double shifts to support 3 children, of Lucas, who was about to retire after 20 years of loyal service, of dozens of other colleagues who depended on the Grand Hotel Imperium not only to survive, but to provide for their families with dignity. "Alan," she said, her voice steady despite her slightly trembling hands. "My grandmother used to say that when you have the opportunity to do the right thing, you don't have a choice. You have an obligation." Alex watched her for a long moment. There was something almost luminous about Victoria when she spoke about moral principles, not the artificial luminosity of someone performing virtue, but the genuine light of someone who truly believed what she was saying. "Then we'll investigate," he decided. "But we'll do it in the smartest way possible. Do you trust Lucas?" Completely. And Emily, my assistant, will be here in an hour to coordinate the formal investigation. She's intense but absolutely trustworthy. Victoria nodded, trying not to show the nervousness she felt at the thought of meeting the famous Emily Morgan, about whom stories of ruthless efficiency circulated. Victoria, Alex called her attention again. Why are you willing to do this? To risk yourself like this? She thought about the question, searching for words to explain feelings that had been shaped by years of struggle and sacrifice. Because someone has to, and because he hesitated. Because sometimes when we're lucky enough to be in the right position at the right time, we have a responsibility to act, regardless of the personal cost. Alex felt something crumble inside him, not destructively, but like an unnecessary wall finally finding permission to fall. For the first time in years, he wasn't alone in his difficult decisions. The storm outside continued, but something new was emerging on the 15th floor of the Grand Hotel Imperium. A partnership based on shared values, a trust built on mutual honesty, and maybe, just maybe, the beginning of something neither had the courage to name yet. Emily Morgan entered the Grand Hotel Imperium like a force of nature in a perfectly tailored Armani suit. Her presence immediately altered the dynamic of the room. Staff straightened, conversations quieted, and even the air seemed thicker with corporate authority. Victoria waited for her in the lobby, trying to control her nerves. Stories about Emily were legendary in São Paulo business circles. A woman who had transformed Alex's disorganized personal schedule into a Swiss precision machine, who negotiated million-dollar contracts with the coolness of a computer, who protected the Allens' interests with almost religious devotion. Ms. Mendes, Emily greeted with a firm handshake and a smile that didn't reach her eyes. Alex told me about your discovery. Ms. Morgan, thank you for coming. I know this is a delicate situation. Emily studied Victoria for a few seconds, not with open hostility, but with the clinical assessment of someone cataloging the strengths and weaknesses of a potential ally or enemy. Let's go upstairs, Emily said, and please call me Emily. Unnecessary formalities only waste time. In the elevator, Emily had noticed immediately that Alex hadn't come down to greet her. The silence was punctuated only by the gentle hum of the machine ascending. Victoria could feel the tension radiating from the woman beside her, as if she were constantly processing multiple layers of information and strategy. Victoria, Emily broke the silence as they reached the 15th floor. I need to ask you a direct question. What are your intentions regarding Alex? The question was so sudden and personal that Victoria nearly stumbled as she stepped out of the elevator. My intentions? Alex is an extremely vulnerable man disguised as a corporate strength. He's been hurt before by people who preyed on that vulnerability. I won't let that happen again. Victoria stopped in the hallway, staring directly at Emily. My intentions are to protect my job, protect my colleagues, and do the right thing. If that includes protecting Mr. Allen from people who are stealing from his company, then yes, that is my intention. Emily arched an eyebrow, slightly impressed by the direct answer. Good answer. Let's see if your actions match your words. When they entered the suite, Alex was on the phone, his voice tense as he discussed details with the company's legal department. He waved them to sit as he ended the call. Emily, Victoria has shown me evidence of a systematic embezzlement scheme operating for at least 18 months. The numbers are substantial. Emily opened her tablet and began taking notes with impressive speed. Suspects? Daniel Carter is at the center of it all, Victoria replied. The discrepancies began soon after he assumed greater control over financial operations. Daniel Carter, Emily repeated, her tone suggesting she was already compiling a mental dossier. 53 years old, 15 years with the company, recently divorced with 2 children in expensive private universities. Clear financial motivation. Alex and Victoria exchanged a look of surprise at the speed of the analysis. I was already investigating the hotel's finances, Emily explained casually. Irregularities in family properties always catch my attention. What else did you find out? Alex asked. Daniel has a silent partner in several transactions. Someone with enough capital to facilitate money laundering through real estate investments. Emily paused dramatically. Olivia Parker. The name fell like a bombshell into the room. Victoria saw Alex pale, his fingers automatically assuming the mathematical drumming pattern she had learned to recognize as a sign of extreme stress. Is Olivia involved? Not directly involved in the hotel's operations, but she has financial connections to companies that appear as shell suppliers in Daniel's scheme. It's elegant, actually. She uses Daniel's embezzlement to finance investments that will eventually give her influence over the family's properties. Victoria watched the conversation, trying to grasp the implications. Who is Olivia Parker? My ex-fiancée, Alex replied, his voice so cold Victoria felt a chill. Someone I thought I'd left behind? Emily continued her relentless analysis. Her plan is brilliant. Drain the hotel's resources through Daniel, create financial instability, then appear as a savior investor when the family is forced to sell off shares to cover losses. Revenge and profit combined. How much time do we have? Victoria asked. Based on the progression of the deviations, I'd say Daniel is preparing for a discovery of the irregularities in the next 2 weeks. Probably blaming you, Victoria, since your recent promotion puts you in a position of responsibility. Alex stood up abruptly, walking to the window. The rain had stopped, but clouds still darkened the sky, creating a gray light that perfectly matched his mood. Options? He asked. 3 possibilities, Emily replied with military efficiency. First, immediate media exposure. Quick, but destructive to the company's reputation. Second, quiet internal investigation followed by legal action. Slower, but allows control of the narrative. Third, what's the third one? Victoria asked when Emily hesitated. Emily smiled for the first time since her arrival. A smile that was simultaneously admiring and predatory. The third is the riskiest, but potentially the most satisfying. We let Daniel believe he's in control, collect irrefutable evidence of his activities, and then completely turn the tables on Olivia. Alex turned from the window, his eyes meeting Victoria's. What do you think? Victoria felt the weight of responsibility. 2 extremely powerful people were genuinely asking her opinion on a decision that would affect millions of dollars and dozens of lives. I think the third option gives us the best chance of protecting innocent employees, she said finally. But I also think we need a very detailed plan. Daniel is smart. He didn't get here by accident. Emily nodded approvingly. Perfect. Then let's go to war. 2 weeks later, Victoria had become a consummate actress. Every morning she greeted Daniel Carter with the same genuine smile, discussed financial reports with the same professional dedication, and kept the hotel running smoothly. No one suspected that she was secretly documenting every suspicious movement, every questionable transaction. Emily had installed a discreet monitoring system that captured all of Daniel's electronic communications. Alex, for his part, had begun showing up at the hotel with unusual frequency, ostensibly to evaluate possible improvements to the operation, but in reality, to support Victoria and observe Daniel in action. It was a rainy Thursday when everything changed. Victoria was reviewing the weekly reports when Lucas appeared in her office, his face pale and his hands shaking. Victoria, I need to talk to you. It's about Mr. Daniel. What happened? He asked me to change some dates on the purchasing reports. He said it was to adjust system discrepancies, but Lucas swallowed. The changes would completely shift the blame for the discrepancies we discovered. Everything would point back to you. Victoria felt her blood run cold. Daniel was accelerating his plans. Lucas, I need you to do exactly what he asked. But first, I need you to copy all the original documents and give them to Emily Morgan. Do you have her contact information? I do, but Victoria, Lucas, trust me, everything will be okay. 2 hours later, Emily burst into the 15th floor suite like a controlled hurricane. Daniel has accelerated the schedule, she announced. He's scheduled a meeting with internal audit for tomorrow at 2 p.m. The official topic is irregularities discovered during recent supervision. Alex slammed his laptop shut. Is he going to publicly accuse Victoria? Worse. He has documents that superficially support the accusation. If Victoria shows up to this meeting unprepared, she will be fired for cause and possibly face criminal charges. Victoria felt the world spin. It was exactly what her grandmother had always warned her. Sometimes doing the right thing cost everything you had. Then I'm not going to the meeting, she said, trying to keep her voice steady. It doesn't work that way, Alex replied. If you don't show up, it'll be interpreted as an admission of guilt. Daniel wins by default. Emily began pacing the room, her mind visibly working on multiple strategies simultaneously. Unless, she muttered. Unless what? Victoria asked. Emily stopped walking and turned to Alex with a smile he knew all too well. The smile she had when she was about to propose something brilliant and completely risky. Alex, do you trust Victoria? Completely. And you, Victoria, do you trust Alex? With my life. Perfect. Because I'm going to propose something that will require absolute trust from both of us. Emily opened her tablet and began typing rapidly. We're going to completely change the game. Tomorrow, Victoria will attend the meeting as expected, but not as the accused, as the complainant. She will present full evidence of Daniel's scheme, including his connections to Olivia. Daniel will be caught completely unprepared. Alex frowned. Emily, this puts Victoria at even greater risk. If something goes wrong... Alex, Victoria interrupted softly. Remember what we talked about having the opportunity to do the right thing? He watched her for a long moment, seeing the determination in her eyes, the courage he had grown to admire. What needs to be done? Emily smiled wider. First, we need a confession from Daniel. Victoria, can you provoke him into admitting the scheme, preferably on tape? I can try. Second, we need to neutralize Olivia before she realizes we've discovered her involvement. Alex felt a knot in his stomach. What? Simple. You're meeting her tonight. Absolutely not, Alex said immediately. I'm not putting Victoria at risk while I meet with Olivia. The objection was so automatic and fierce that both Emily and Victoria were momentarily taken aback. Alex, Victoria said softly, if it increases our chances of success, you should do it. Victoria, you don't understand. Olivia is... She has a way of manipulating situations, of making people doubt themselves. If she finds out you're important to me, she'll use it. The words were out before Alex realized what he'd said. The silence that followed was laden with implications none of them were prepared to face at that moment. Important to you? Victoria repeated, her voice barely above a whisper. Alex closed his eyes, realizing he had exposed the very vulnerability he had always tried to hide. Victoria, he began, but Emily interrupted him. Perfect, she said, clapping her hands once. That makes everything easier. Like this? Alex, you won't be meeting Olivia alone. Victoria will be there too. Not as an employee, but as your companion. Emily, this is crazy, Alex protested. It's brilliant, Emily corrected. Olivia expects to find the vulnerable Alex she met years ago. Instead, she'll find a man who has someone on his side. Someone who genuinely cares about him, not his money. This will completely derail her plans. Victoria felt her heart race. The idea of pretending to be Alex's companion was simultaneously terrifying and strangely appealing. What if she suspects it's an act? Emily smiled mischievously. Honey, from what I've observed these past few days, you two won't have to pretend much. The blush that simultaneously rose to Alex and Victoria's faces confirmed Emily's suspicions. She had been trained to read people, and the connection between these two was impossible to ignore. Then it's decided, Emily concluded. Victoria, you have until 1 p.m. tomorrow to get Daniel's confession. Alex, you and Victoria will have dinner with Olivia at 8 p.m. at the hotel restaurant tonight. I'll coordinate everything behind the scenes. Emily, Alex said, her voice thick with worry. If this goes wrong, Victoria could lose a lot more than just her job. Alex, Victoria replied, gently touching his arm. If we don't try, I'll certainly lose everything anyway. At least this way we have a chance. Her touch on his arm sent a jolt of electricity through Alex. It was a simple, comforting touch, but it carried an intimacy he hadn't experienced in years. Okay, he said finally. But we do this together. Completely together. Together, Victoria agreed. Emily watched the scene with professional satisfaction. She had entered the hotel suspicious of Victoria's intentions toward Alex. Now, she was beginning to suspect that perhaps Victoria was exactly what Alex needed to finally heal from the wounds of the past. The sunset painted the sky orange through the suite's windows, creating an almost magical atmosphere. In a few hours, the riskiest game of their lives would begin. A game where the stakes included not only careers and money, but also the possibility of something far more precious. Genuine love blossoming amidst the chaos. The Panorama restaurant on the top floor of the Grand Hotel Imperium had been transformed into a movie-worthy setting. Emily had personally taken care of every detail: soft lighting that favored intimate conversations, a strategically positioned table to allow her security team to discreetly monitor the scene, and even the music selection had been calibrated to create just the right ambiance. Victoria nervously adjusted the dress Emily had insisted she wear, a navy Valentino that cost more than her 6-month salary. She felt like an imposter playing a role far beyond her capabilities. "Breathe," Alex murmured beside her, his hand finding hers under the table. "You look perfect." His touch was comforting and unsettling at the same time. Over the past few weeks, she had discovered that Alex Allen was very different from the cold, calculating man his reputation suggested. There was a gentleness in his gestures, a carefully hidden vulnerability that awakened protective instincts in her she hadn't known she possessed. "Alex, dear." The melodious voice cut through the air like a blade of silk. Olivia Parker approached the table with the predatory grace of a feline, her dark eyes immediately cataloging every detail of Victoria before settling on Alex with an intensity that made Victoria uncomfortable. "Olivia." Alex stood politely, but Victoria could feel the tension radiating from his body. Olivia was exactly as Victoria had imagined, and completely different at the same time. Classic Latin beauty combined with European sophistication, wearing a Dior that probably cost more than a car. But there was something in her eyes, a calculating coldness that contrasted with her warm smile. "And you must be Victoria," Olivia said, extending a perfectly manicured hand. "Alex told me so little about you on the phone." "Nice to meet you," Victoria replied, accepting the handshake and immediately noticing how Olivia tested the firmness of her grip, a subtle test of dominance. When they sat down, Olivia strategically positioned herself so that Alex was in her direct line of sight, forcing Victoria to remain slightly on the periphery of the conversation. "Alex, you look wonderful," Olivia began, completely ignoring Victoria. "Mature, confident. The company leadership clearly suits you well." "Thank you," Alex replied politely, but Victoria could feel his posture stiffen. "And this hotel," Olivia continued, gesturing elegantly, "has always been my favorite in the city. It has so many memories." The comment was ostensibly directed at the room, but Victoria realized it was a poison arrow aimed specifically at Alex, a reminder of their shared history. "Things have changed a lot since then," Alex replied, his hand finding Victoria's on the table in a gesture that was simultaneously protective and possessive. Olivia noticed the gesture immediately, her eyes narrowing almost imperceptibly. "Ah, yes. Victoria, isn't it? Alex mentioned that you work here at the hotel." The way she said, "works here," carried a tone of condescension that made Victoria feel heat rise in her cheeks. "Victoria is a general supervisor," Alex corrected, his voice taking on a hardness that Victoria had learned to recognize as a sign of danger. "What an impressive responsibility," Olivia said with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "It must be challenging, overseeing a facility with so many operational complexities." Victoria felt a chill. There was something about the way Olivia said operational complexities that suggested knowledge too specific to be casual. "Every operation has its challenges," Victoria replied carefully. "But when you work with people of integrity, problems can be solved." "Integrity," Olivia repeated, as if savoring the word. What an interesting concept in the business world. Alex felt the temperature of the conversation changing and decided to take control. "Olivia, you mentioned on the phone that you had a business proposal. What is it about?" Olivia smiled genuinely for the first time that night, the smile of someone entering familiar territory. "Well, I've been following the performance of some of the family's properties. This particular hotel has shown interesting fluctuations in financial results." Victoria and Alex exchanged a quick glance. Olivia was confirming her knowledge of the irregularities. "Fluctuations how?" Victoria asked, ignoring the warning look Olivia gave her for butting into the conversation. "Oh dear, we certainly won't bore you with complex financial details," Olivia said with venomous condescension. "Victoria has a background in hotel management and is perfectly qualified to understand any financial discussion," Alex replied, his voice icy. The tense moment was interrupted by the arrival of the sommelier with the wine selection Emily had pre-ordered, a calculated distraction that allowed Victoria to observe Olivia unnoticed. The woman was clearly frustrated that she couldn't marginalize Victoria from the conversation. Even more revealing, she demonstrated detailed knowledge of the hotel's operations that went far beyond what an outside investor should have. "Alex," Olivia continued when the sommelier walked away, "you've always been too idealistic for business. Remember how we discussed the need to be pragmatic?" "I remember many discussions about many things," Alex replied diplomatically. "For example, your tendency to trust the wrong people." The comment was directed at Alex, but Olivia's eyes were fixed on Victoria. "Funny," Victoria said softly. "I was thinking the exact same thing." The silence that followed was charged with electricity. Olivia had underestimated Victoria, and now she realized she wasn't dealing with an intimidated employee, but with an intelligent woman who wouldn't back down from veiled threats. "Victoria," Alex said, his voice thick with barely concealed admiration, "has a very clear perspective on character." "It comes from experience," Victoria replied, maintaining eye contact with Olivia. "When you grow up without privilege, you learn to recognize genuineness versus performance." Olivia laughed, a crystal-clear sound that held no hint of true humor. "How charming." Alex has always been drawn to charitable projects. The sentence was Olivia's final mistake of the night. Alex stood abruptly, her formal manners fighting against a primal urge to defend Victoria from any form of disrespect. "Olivia, I think this conversation is over." "Alex, I didn't mean to offend." "Yes, he did," Victoria interrupted, also standing up. "And he succeeded. But he didn't offend me. He enlightened me." Olivia looked between the two of them, finally realizing that she had completely lost control of the situation. "Alex, you're making a mistake," she said, her mask of civility finally slipping. "This woman isn't who you think she is. And this hotel, well, we'll find out soon enough how much your loyalty is really worth." The threat was clear and unequivocal. Olivia knew about Daniel's scheme and was ready to use it. "Good evening, Olivia," Alex said coolly, offering his arm to Victoria. As they walked away from the table, Victoria could feel Olivia's eyes burning into her back. But for the first time since the investigation began, she felt no fear. She felt fury. It was 2 a.m. when Victoria and Alex returned to their 15th floor suite. The tension from dinner still throbbed between them, mixed with something more complex and dangerous, a forced intimacy that had blossomed into something genuine overnight. "Coffee?" Alex asked, automatically heading for the coffee maker Victoria had provided weeks before. "Please." Victoria sat down on the sofa, finally allowing the emotional exhaustion of the evening to set in. The elegant dress she had worn as armor during dinner now felt like a costume she was eager to discard. "Alex," she said, as he handed her a steaming cup, "you didn't have to defend me like that." "I did." The certainty in his voice surprised her. "Victoria, what Olivia said about you being a charity project was despicable." Alex sat next to her, closer than would have been appropriate under normal circumstances, but nothing about this situation was normal. "She was trying to provoke me," Victoria said, "and she almost succeeded. How did you stop yourself? I wanted to." Alex paused, realizing he was about to admit to violent impulses that contradicted his refined upbringing. "You wanted to protect me," Victoria finished softly. "No one has ever done that before." Alex looked at her, noticing for the first time small details he had missed during the weeks of working together. The way she bit her lower lip slightly when she was thinking. The way her eyes lit up when she smiled genuinely. The small, almost invisible scar on her left temple. "Victoria, I need to tell you something. About Olivia? About us." The "we" hung in the air between them like a bridge neither of them was sure they should cross. "Alex, please let me speak." He placed the cup on the table and turned to face her fully. "When Emily asked if you were important to me, I said yes before I could even think. It wasn't strategy or tactics. It was truth." Victoria felt her heart race. "Alex, we've barely known each other. 3 weeks, and most of that time has been about crisis and investigations. 3 weeks where you showed me more honesty and courage than I've seen in years of previous relationships. 3 weeks where you reminded me that there are people who do the right thing even when it costs everything." He stood, beginning to pace the room, a habit Victoria had learned to recognize as a sign that he was processing complex emotions. Victoria, I don't know how this happened. I wasn't looking for you. But now that you're here, I can't imagine what my life was like before. Alex, stop. Victoria also stood up, walking over to him. Look at me. When he complied, she saw raw vulnerability in his eyes. Not the calculated vulnerability that powerful men sometimes used as manipulation, but the genuine exposure of someone who had decided to remove all masks. Do you think this is real? She asked. Or is it the adrenaline of the situation, the closeness forced by circumstances? Do you think it's real? He returned the question. Victoria thought back over the past month. Alex hadn't tried to impress her with wealth or power. Instead, she'd seen his kindness when he thought no one was watching, his genuine concern for employees he didn't even know personally, his ability to truly listen when she spoke. I think, she said slowly, it's the most real thing I've ever felt in my life, and it terrifies me. Alex took a step toward her, his hands finding her face with a gentleness that belied his reputation as a ruthless businessman. Victoria, the day after tomorrow when this is all over, regardless of the outcome, would you like to find out what that could be? No crises, no investigations, no pressure? Just us? Before Victoria could respond, Alex's phone rang. Emily, you need to know something urgent. Her voice came tensely through the loudspeaker. Daniel has accelerated his plans even further. He's scheduled a press conference for 8 a.m., announcing serious findings of financial mismanagement at the Grand Hotel Imperium. Alex and Victoria looked at each other, the reality of the situation coming back like a cold wave. Emily, that means we only have 6 hours. Exactly. Victoria, can you get him to confess before 8 a.m.? Victoria looked at Alex, seeing in him the same determination she felt growing in her own chest. I can, but I need to do this alone. If Daniel suspects it's a trap, he won't expose himself. Absolutely not, Alex said immediately. It's too dangerous. Alex, do you trust me? The question echoed the same one Emily had asked hours earlier, but now it carried much greater emotional weight. With my life. Then let me do this. Let me protect you this time. Alex closed his eyes, fighting every instinct that urged him to protect her. When he opened them again, Victoria saw acceptance mixed with fear. What kind of plan do you have? Victoria smiled. Not the professional smile she wore at work, but the brave smile of someone about to bet everything on a single play. I'll use the one thing Daniel doesn't expect from me. What is it? Brutal honesty. At 5:30 in the morning, Victoria went down to Daniel Carter's office. She knew he arrived early every Friday to review weekly reports, an obsessive habit she would now use against him. The digital recorder Emily had provided was hidden in her blazer pocket, invisible but active. In the next 2 hours, she would have to get Daniel to admit not only his misdeeds but also his connection to Olivia. Victoria! Daniel looked genuinely surprised to see her. You're early today. I couldn't sleep, she said, allowing genuine nervousness to show in her voice. Daniel, I need to talk to you about today's meeting. Daniel stiffened almost imperceptibly. What meeting? The meeting with internal audit, about the irregularities. Oh, that. Daniel sat behind his desk, assuming a fatherly posture that Victoria now recognized as pure performance. Victoria, sit down. Let's talk. Daniel, I'm terrified. Victoria sat down, allowing genuine tears to well in her eyes. The numbers Lucas showed me, they directly implicate me. Victoria, dear, I know you're honest. We all do. Daniel leaned forward, his voice thick with false compassion. But sometimes when someone gets promoted too quickly, they can be manipulated by people with bad intentions. Manipulated how? Well, you took on responsibilities that you may not have been prepared to handle. And certain people, Daniel paused dramatically. Certain people may have taken advantage of your inexperience. Victoria feigned confusion. What people? Alex Allen, for example. He has a history of complicated relationships with female employees. The lie about Alex sparked genuine fury in Victoria, but she channeled it into her performance. Do you think he used me? Victoria, men like Alex Allen see people like us, hardworking, honest people, as pawns in a game. They play with us, make us feel special, and when they need a scapegoat, are you saying he planned to put me in this position? Daniel stood up, walking to the window with theatrical gestures. Victoria, I've been trying to protect you. That's why I suggested Lucas change some dates on the reports to lessen your perceived responsibility. But wouldn't that be a lie? Sometimes small adjustments are necessary to protect innocent people from unjust consequences. Victoria felt sickened when she heard Daniel justify corruption as protection, but she needed to dig deeper. Daniel, can I trust you? Completely? Of course, dear. You can. Because there are things about Alex Allen that I've discovered, things that could be dangerous for me. Daniel turned immediately, his eyes shining with predatory interest. What kind of things? He has connections with questionable people who may be using the hotel to launder money. Victoria, that is a very serious accusation. I know. But Daniel, what if I was guilty of schemes other people created? What if someone was embezzling money from the hotel and setting it up to frame me? Daniel sat back down, his posture changing subtly. Victoria could see he'd touched something. Why would you think that? Because the numbers I have access to don't match the numbers Lucas showed me. It's as if someone with access to the central systems is altering data. Victoria. Daniel hesitated, and Victoria realized she was reaching the crucial moment. Daniel, please. I need to know the truth. Is someone setting me up to be guilty? Daniel was silent for a long moment, clearly debating internally how much to reveal. Victoria, there are things about the operations of this hotel that you don't understand. Then explain it to me. Sometimes, to protect jobs, to maintain stability, certain adaptations are necessary in financial reporting. What kind of adaptations? Small adjustments to contracts, cost redistribution, supplier optimization. Victoria pretended to be processing slowly. Are you talking about the contracts I didn't recognize? Those new suppliers? Victoria, you're very smart. Daniel smiled, and there was something genuinely admiring in his expression. Yes, some of these contracts are strategic. Strategic how? They allow financial flexibility that benefits everyone. The hotel continues to operate, employees keep their jobs, and outside investors are satisfied. Outside investors? Like Olivia Parker? Daniel froze. It was the first time Victoria had mentioned Olivia's name, and his reaction confirmed all her suspicions. How do you know that name? Daniel. She had dinner here last night, with Alex, and some of the things she said made me think she knew things about the hotel's finances that an outside investor shouldn't know. Daniel stood up again, but now his body language was that of a cornered person. Victoria, you don't understand the complexity. Daniel, please, just tell me the truth. Is Olivia involved in the financial arrangements? A long silence. Then, as if a dam had broken, Victoria, Olivia Parker is not just an investor. She has a vested interest in disrupting the Allens' operations. And yes, some of the funds that were redirected eventually find their way into her investment funds. Victoria felt triumph and terror simultaneously. Daniel had admitted everything. And me? What is my role in this? Your role, dear Victoria, was to be the competent overseer who would eventually uncover the irregularities and be held accountable for them. A person too honest to be corrupt, but too inexperienced to defend herself adequately. And you? Daniel smiled coldly, the first genuine expression he had shown in the conversation. I, Victoria, will be the dedicated manager who uncovered the scheme and alerted the appropriate authorities. I will receive a promotion for my vigilance, and you, well, you will become an example of what happens when simple people try to play games too complex for them. Victoria felt ice run through her veins, but she forced herself to maintain her composure. Daniel, what if I don't cooperate? What if I tell Alex what you told me? Daniel laughed genuinely for the first time. Victoria, darling, do you think Alex Allen really cares about you? Men like him play with women like you. When he needs a scapegoat, he'll sacrifice you without hesitation. But what if you're wrong about him? Victoria, I'm not wrong about anything. In 2 hours, you'll be unemployed and possibly facing criminal charges. Alex will be protecting your reputation, and I'll be saving the hotel. Daniel checked his watch. Now, if you'll excuse me, I need to finalize some details for the press conference. Victoria stood, her legs shaky but determined. Daniel, thank you for being honest with me. You're welcome, dear. I'm sorry it has to end this way. When Victoria left the office, her hands were shaking so badly she could barely hold the recorder. But she had gotten it. Not just Daniel's confession, but details about the entire operation that directly connected Olivia to the scheme. By 7 o'clock, the 15th floor suite had transformed into an operations center. Emily coordinated multiple simultaneous calls. Alex reviewed legal documents and Victoria transcribed key points from Daniel's recording. Perfect, Emily said after listening to the full recording. Victoria, you've uncovered evidence that goes beyond what we expected. Emily, Alex interrupted, we have a bigger problem. I just got word from our legal department. Olivia isn't acting alone. Like this? She has the support of a consortium of international investors. If she can destabilize our operations here, they have the resources to buy our properties at well below market value. Victoria felt the weight of the situation. How many properties? 17 hotels in 7 countries. They represent 60% of the family's assets. Emily paused, processing the implications. Alex, this means we're not just saving this hotel. We're saving the family empire. What if we lose? Alex looked out the window, watching the first stirrings of journalists gathering in the hotel parking lot. If we lose, 3 generations of family work will be lost. More importantly, 2,000 employees across 17 properties will be out of work. Victoria felt a sudden clarity. The responsibility she had taken on by agreeing to investigate the irregularities was far greater than she had imagined. Alex, she said, I need to tell you something I discovered during my conversation with Daniel. What? He said Olivia has a special interest in disrupting the Allens' operations. That sounds too personal to be just business. Alex and Emily exchanged a meaningful look. Victoria's right, Emily said slowly. Alex, there are aspects of your relationship with Olivia that we've never fully discussed. Emily, I don't think it's... Alex, if we're going to face this together, Victoria needs to know the whole truth. Alex closed his eyes, clearly fighting privacy instincts that had been built up over years. Victoria, Olivia, and I were very close. We were engaged for 2 years. I know that. But you don't know why the engagement ended. Victoria waited in silence, realizing that Alex was about to share something extremely painful. I discovered that Olivia had orchestrated our relationship from the beginning. She had researched my family, my habits, my vulnerabilities. Our chance encounter at a conference in Barcelona had been planned for months. Alex, she knew about my claustrophobia before our 3rd date. She knew about the nightmares, about my complicated relationship with my father. She used all that information to become exactly what I thought I needed. Emily continued her narrative in a professional voice, but Victoria could sense the underlying pain. When Alex discovered the manipulation, he broke off the engagement immediately. Olivia didn't react well. She told me she loved me. Alex continued, his voice barely above a whisper. And for a few months, I actually believed her. When I found out the truth, it wasn't just the end of a relationship. It was a breach of trust in my ability to recognize genuine people. Victoria felt her heart break for the man she had grown to love. Now she understood his initial distrust, his need to mathematically analyze every emotional situation. Alex, Olivia may have been a performance, but that doesn't mean you can't recognize genuineness. How can you be sure? Victoria stood up, walking over to him. Because you recognized me, and I recognized you. Alex looked at her with an intensity that made Emily discreetly step aside to give them privacy. Victoria, what if we're wrong? What if this too is an illusion created by circumstances? Then we'll find out together. But Alex, we're not going to let Olivia steal our chance to find out what that might be. A soft knock on the door interrupted the intimate moment. Mr. Allen? It was Lucas, visibly nervous. I'm sorry to interrupt, but there are reporters asking about the press conference. Daniel said it will begin in 15 minutes. Alex, Victoria, and Emily looked at each other. It was time. Emily, do you have everything ready? Everything. Victoria, do you have the courage to face a room full of journalists and television cameras? Victoria thought of her grandmother, who had worked as a housekeeper at the same hotel decades ago. She thought of Emma and her 3 children. She thought of all the honest employees who depended on the Grand Hotel Imperium for their livelihood. I do, she said. I have courage. Alex held her hand. Together? Together. The conference room at the Grand Hotel Imperium was packed. Journalists from major media outlets, television cameras, and prominent figures from São Paulo's business world created an almost palpable atmosphere of anticipation. Daniel Carter adjusted his tie for the third time, mentally rehearsing the lines that would destroy Victoria Mendez and simultaneously elevate him to corporate hero status. Beside him, a corporate lawyer hired by Olivia reviewed documents that seemed irrefutable. "Ladies and gentlemen," Daniel began, his voice projecting with practiced authority, "thank you for attending this extremely important conference on corporate transparency." In the audience, Victoria felt her heart race. Alex sat 3 rows behind her, and Emily discreetly coordinated a team of lawyers and communications specialists on the sides of the room. "Unfortunately," Daniel continued, "I have discovered serious irregularities in the financial management of this property. Systematic embezzlement totaling millions of reais, orchestrated by someone in a position of trust." Murmurs spread through the room. The cameras focused on Daniel, who assumed an expression of professional sadness. The person responsible for these irregularities is Victoria Mendez, the current general supervisor, who abused her position to implement a complex scheme to embezzle funds. Victoria closed her eyes for a moment, took a deep breath, and stood up. "That's a lie," she said, her voice cutting through the air like a blade. The room fell silent immediately. Daniel paled, clearly not expecting Victoria to be present. "Victoria?" Daniel tried to regain control. "I understand that you're nervous, but I have recordings of our conversation this morning, Mr. Carter," Victoria interrupted, walking to the front of the room. "Recordings in which you admit to creating shell vendors, manipulating contracts, and collaborating with outside investors to destabilize this hotel's operations." Chaos ensued instantly. Journalists shouted questions, cameras moved frantically, and Daniel gesticulated desperately, trying to deny the accusations. "This is a setup," Daniel shouted. "She's trying to frame me to escape her own responsibilities." "Emily," Victoria called, "can you play the recording?" Emily stood up with a professional digital recorder. "Ladies and gentlemen, what you will now hear is the full conversation between Victoria Mendez and Daniel Carter from this morning at 5:30. Daniel's voice filled the room. "Victoria, some of these funds that were redirected eventually reach her investment funds." "Her who?" Victoria's voice echoed. "Olivia Parker." Olivia's name caused a new wave of murmurs. Daniel was visibly desperate, searching for a way out that didn't exist. I was coerced, threatened." "By whom?" a journalist shouted. Daniel hesitated, realizing that any answer would only incriminate him further. It was at this moment that Alex stood up. "Ladies and gentlemen," he said, his presence immediately commanding absolute attention, "as the owner of this property, I would like to clarify a few points." Alex walked forward, positioning himself next to Victoria in a gesture of solidarity that didn't go unnoticed by anyone. "Daniel Carter will be terminated for cause and will face criminal prosecution for embezzlement. Authorities have been notified, and a full investigation will be conducted." "Mr. Allen," a reporter shouted, "is it true that your ex-fiancée is involved in the scheme?" Alex hesitated only a moment before answering. "Olivia Parker will be investigated for her possible involvement in the crimes revealed here." "What about Victoria Mendez? Is she guilty or innocent?" Alex looked at Victoria and, for the first time in public, allowed his admiration and affection for her to be visible. "Victoria Mendez is not only innocent of any wrongdoing, but she was the person responsible for uncovering and exposing the entire criminal scheme. She demonstrated exceptional courage by risking her own career to protect the integrity of this company and the jobs of hundreds of colleagues." "Mr. Allen," another reporter asked, "what will be Victoria Mendez's future at the company?" Alex smiled, a genuine smile that completely transformed his expression. "Victoria Mendez will be promoted to general manager of this property, with full authority over all operations. She has demonstrated not only exceptional technical competence, but also moral integrity that I consider invaluable." Victoria felt tears of relief and gratitude well up in her eyes. Not only had her reputation been cleared, but Alex had publicly demonstrated confidence in her abilities. Daniel, realizing he had completely lost, tried one last desperate move. You don't understand. Olivia Parker has the resources to destroy the entire Allen family. She won't stop here. Mr. Carter, Emily approached with 2 security guards. You are under arrest for embezzlement and conspiracy. As Daniel was escorted out of the room, Victoria and Alex stood side by side, facing the cameras and questions with a unity that spoke louder than any official statement. Mr. Allen, a reporter asked, how did you know you could trust Victoria Mendez so completely? Alex looked at Victoria, his eyes shining with an emotion he didn't try to hide. Sometimes, he said, you know genuine honesty when you see it. Victoria Mendez represented all that is best in human nature. The courage to do what is right, regardless of the personal cost. The press conference continued for another hour, but Victoria barely heard the questions. All she could process was the feeling of Alex beside her, solid and protective, and the certainty that she had weathered the most dangerous storm of her life with her integrity intact. When they finally left the hall, Alex discreetly held her hand. How are you feeling? Exhausted, Victoria admitted, but victorious. Victoria, Alex stopped in the empty hallway, turning to face her. You saved a lot more than a hotel today. You saved my ability to trust again. Before Victoria could respond, Emily appeared with a triumphant expression. Alex, Victoria, she said, I just got a call. Olivia Parker has been arrested by federal authorities in connection with money laundering schemes in 3 countries. The international consortium that supported her is quickly disbanding. Alex closed his eyes, feeling decades of tension finally leave his shoulders. Is it over? He asked. It's over, Emily confirmed. 3 months later, the Grand Hotel Imperium had completely transformed. Under Victoria's management, the property had not only regained its financial stability, but was posting its best results in 5 years. Victoria was in her new office, ironically, the same one that had belonged to Daniel, when Alex knocked on the door. Come in, she said, looking up from reports that now showed only honest, transparent numbers. How is our new general manager? Busy, Victoria smiled, but happy. Alex sat in the chair across from her desk, a ritual he'd developed over the past few weeks. Every day at 5 o'clock, he'd show up to discuss hotel operations, but they both knew these meetings were about much more than business. Victoria, I need to talk to you about something. About the hotel? About us. The "we" still caused butterflies in Victoria's stomach, even months later. Alex, please let me finish. Alex stood walking to the window that offered a panoramic view of the city. For the past 3 months, we've worked together every day. You've proven to me time and time again that you can trust me professionally, and I hope I've proven the same. You proved it. But Victoria, I don't want just a professional partnership anymore. Alex turned, his eyes meeting hers with an intensity that made Victoria's heart race. I want to wake up every morning knowing I'll see you. I want to share victories and challenges not just as colleagues, but as life partners. Victoria felt tears well up in her eyes. Alex, Victoria, I love you. Not out of gratitude for what you've done, not out of professional admiration, but because you are the most honest, courageous, and genuine person I've ever met. Because when I'm with you, I become a better version of myself. Victoria stood up, walking over to him. Alex, are you sure? Our social difference... Victoria Mendez, Alex interrupted, gently cupping her face. You are the most sophisticated woman I know. Sophistication doesn't come from money or status. It comes from character, integrity, courage, and you possess all of these qualities in abundance. Alex, I love you too, Victoria finally admitted. I love you for the way you protect the people you care about, for your honesty even when it's hard, for the way you make me feel valued not for what I can do, but for who I am. Alex kissed her then, a kiss that carried months of tension, weeks of careful closeness, and the promise of a future built on solid foundations of mutual trust. When they broke apart, Victoria laughed through her tears. Emily is going to be furious that she didn't plan for this moment. Emily already knows, Alex admitted. In fact, she was the one who encouraged me to finally talk to you today. How did she know? Emily observes everything, and according to her, we are both painfully obvious when we are together. Victoria laughed genuinely. She's right. Victoria. Alex held her hands. I know it's early, and I know we have a lot to figure out about how to make this work, but would you like to try? Officially? Alex Allen, Victoria said, her smile lighting up the entire office. I'd love to find out what we could become. Outside the window, the sun was setting over São Paulo, painting the sky with golden hues that were perfectly reflected in the marble lobby many floors below. It was the end of a day, but also the beginning of something new and infinitely promising. A year later, the Grand Hotel Imperium celebrated its 50th anniversary with a party that had become the city's most important social event. The lobby was decorated with thousands of golden lights that created a magical atmosphere, reflecting endlessly on the polished marble surfaces. Victoria nervously adjusted her wedding dress, an Ely sob that Emily had insisted was perfect for a hotel lobby ceremony. The idea of getting married in the same place where she had met Alex, where she had faced her greatest professional and personal crisis, seemed poetically appropriate. Nervous? Emma asked, helping Victoria with her veil. Terrified, Victoria admitted, laughing. Emma, a year ago I was fighting to keep my job. Now I'm marrying the man I love at the hotel I run. And deserving every second of happiness, Emma said firmly. Victoria, you've transformed this place. Not just financially, but humanly. People work happier knowing they have a leader who truly cares about them. Victoria looked out the window of the office that had temporarily become her dressing room. Downstairs, the lobby was filled with guests. Hotel staff mingling with São Paulo's business elite, creating exactly the kind of celebration she had dreamed of. Elegant, yet warm and inclusive. Victoria! Emily appeared in the doorway, radiant in a navy Valentino dress. Are you ready? More than ready. Good, because Alex is literally walking in circles down there, and if he doesn't stop soon, he's going to wear down the marble. Victoria laughed, picturing Alex nervous. Over the past few months, she'd learned to recognize all his anxious habits. The mathematical tapping of his fingers, the way he adjusted his tie, the small but genuine smile that appeared when something truly made him happy. Emily, Victoria said as they descended in the elevator, thank you. For everything. For investigating me, for protecting me, for helping us uncover the truth. Victoria, Emily replied with genuine affection. Thank you for bringing back the Alex I used to know. Over the past few months, he started smiling genuinely again. You did that. The elevator doors opened, revealing the lobby transformed into something out of a modern fairy tale. Arrangements of white and gold flowers created pathways between the tables, and the soft lights made every surface glow like liquid gold. But Victoria only had eyes for Alex. He stood in the center of the lobby, impeccably dressed in a tailored tuxedo, chatting nervously with Lucas, who had become the new head of accounting. When he saw Victoria emerging from the elevator, Alex stopped mid-sentence, his face lighting up with an expression of pure admiration. The music began, not the traditional wedding march, but an instrumental version of La Vie en Rose, chosen because, according to Alex, that was how he felt when he looked at Victoria, as if the whole world had become more beautiful. Victoria walked toward him, passing familiar and beloved faces. Her mother, who had traveled from Maranhão and was crying proudly in the front row. Hotel colleagues who had become her chosen family. Business people who had learned to respect her not for her connection to Alex, but for her genuine competence and integrity. When he reached Alex, he held out his hand to her with a smile that radiated absolute happiness. You look beautiful, he murmured, his words audible only to her. You too, Victoria replied, allowing him to intertwine their fingers. The judge, a friend of the Allen family who had insisted on performing the ceremony, began with words of love, commitment, and partnership, but Victoria barely listened, lost in Alex's eyes, which reflected the golden lights of the lobby like stars. Alex, the judge said, would you like to speak your votes? Alex took a deep breath, his hands holding Victoria's tightly. Victoria Mendez, he began, his voice thick with emotion. A year ago, you came into my life like a force of nature disguised as a hotel employee. You taught me that courage is not the absence of fear, but doing the right thing despite the fear. Victoria felt tears well up, but she kept smiling. You showed me that honesty isn't naivety, it's strength. That kindness isn't weakness, it's power. That true love isn't finding someone perfect, it's finding someone who makes you want to be a better person every day. Alex paused, clearly emotional. I promise to love you not only on golden days like this one, but through the storms that will surely come. I promise to support you in every dream, protect you in every challenge, and admire you in every achievement. I promise to be your partner in every sense of the word. Victoria, the judge turned to her. Your votes? Victoria looked at Alex, seeing in him not just the powerful man the world knew, but the vulnerable man who trusted her completely, who had removed all masks to show his genuine heart. Alex Allen, she said, her voice steady despite her tears. You taught me that true love isn't about status or wealth, but about finding someone who sees your soul and accepts it completely. You showed me that being protected doesn't mean being diminished, but being valued. That being loved doesn't mean losing independence, but gaining a companion who celebrates your strength. Victoria took a deep breath, the words coming straight from her heart. I promise to love you with the same honesty I use to face all of life's challenges. I promise to support you not only as a wife, but as an equal partner in everything we build together. I promise to never let success change who we are, or hardship break what we have. And I promise, Victoria smiled through her tears, that there will always be fresh coffee waiting for you, no matter how early you wake up from nightmares, or how late you return from business trips. Alex laughed genuinely, remembering how their relationship had begun with a simple gesture of care, coffee prepared with genuine attention. By the power vested in me, the judge said, I now pronounce you husband and wife. Alex, you may kiss your wife. The kiss was soft but deep, full of a year of growth, discovery, and love built on solid foundations of trust and mutual respect. When they separated, the entire lobby erupted in applause and cheers. As they greeted guests and received congratulations, Victoria looked around the gilded lobby and felt a deep gratitude for every difficult moment that had led to this one. Daniel was serving time in federal prison, his actions having paradoxically served to strengthen both the hotel and her relationship with Alex. Olivia had lost her resources in fines and restitution, disappearing completely from São Paulo's social circles. Most importantly, Victoria had discovered that it was possible to maintain integrity and kindness, even in the complex world of corporate business. Under her leadership, the Grand Hotel Imperium had become not only more profitable, but also a place where employees were proud to work, where guests were treated like family, where honesty and excellence went hand in hand. Mrs. Allen, Alex murmured in her ear during their first dance. How does it sound? Perfectly, Victoria replied, allowing him to lead her around the makeshift dance floor in the center of the lobby. Around them, guests danced beneath the golden lights that transformed the marble into something magical. It was exactly as Alex had described months ago. Two seemingly incompatible hearts had discovered that true love not only transcends social differences, but can reshape entire empires when built on honesty, dedication, and smiles that never need to be faked. When the song ended, Victoria and Alex remained embraced for an extra moment, gazing out at the golden world they had created together. It was the end of one journey and the beginning of another, no longer as individuals navigating storms alone, but as partners prepared to face whatever challenges the future might bring. Under the golden lights of the Grand Hotel Imperium, surrounded by people who genuinely cared about their happiness, Alex and Victoria danced until well after midnight, celebrating not only their love, but proof that sometimes the best stories begin in the most impossible moments, with the most unlikely people in the most unexpected places. And when two genuinely whole people meet, they don't just complete each other, they transform the world around them into something more beautiful, more just, more human,